The fourth period of Chinese music, starting from the late Qing dynasty, late 19th and early 20th centuries, was a period when Western culture became popular in China and which brought major changes to Chinese art, including music. During the 1910 to 1920s, many Chinese musicians studied abroad and returned, and started playing European music, also started writing new works in 5-line staff notation. Symphony orchestras were formed in big cities, combining European music and jazz music, which were very popular in concert halls and radios. Entering the 20th century was an era of independence revolutions for many colonized countries in the world. Was also a period of the world wars that destroyed most of Europe. Chaos everywhere that impacted on the Europe communities had shifted world developments, including the technology and music realms, which were originally centered in Europe, to the United States. With the turmoil in the world, coupled with technological developments that had never been as fast as before, changes in people's lives had a huge impact on the world of art, and music was no exception. The spirit of revolt that flowed in the veins of young composers was contained in the emergence of new styles in Western music, that had never existed before, in rhythm, harmony, use of musical instruments, how to play musical instruments, modes of scales, timbre, etc., or in short, totally different from previously. Each composer had his own expertise, style, and way of breaking the conventions that had regulated music so far. Even though we are now used to and can accept that type of music, the listeners and music critics at that time were very disappointed because of the loss of the regularity of music as before in their ears. If the music in the Romantic era, 1820 to 1900, was so diverse that it was very difficult to map its general style, they basically still based on the foundations laid in the classical era. This time the style of the music was much more diverse. Elements of Asian, African and ancient musics had a lot of influence on Western music in that time. Music analysts and critics classified Western music in the early 20th century into several streams. The three main ones were Impressionism, Expressionism and Neoclassicism. Claude Debussy, 1862 to 1918, represented the Impressionism. At the 1889 Paris International Show, Debussy was captivated by the quarter tone of Javanese gamelan. It was Debussy who first popularized the exoticism of Asian musical instruments into Western music area, such as by using parallelism and incorporating pentatonic gamelan elements into his work Pagodes, 1903. In his other works, he also incorporated elements of jazz, often avoided harmonic progressions, and used atonal mode, irregular rhythms and unresolved dissonance. Arnold Schoenberg, 1874 to 1951, represented Expressionism, which contained fragments and did not emphasize on beauty. He used atonal mode. His notable works included 5 pieces for orchestra, Opus 16, 1909, and Pierrot Lunaire, Opus 21, 1912, with its hectic and half-speaking melodies, extremely complex polyphonic textures, and extremely long and irregular phrases. Schoenberg was one of those who moved to the United States. Anton Webern, 1883 to 1945, was a student of Arnold Schoenberg and caught Schoenberg's attention. His work was often ridiculed in his era. His music was short, atonal, and he liked to incorporate elements of ancient music. Each note was significant, with emphasis on dynamics and timbre. As in orchestral piece, Opus 10, No. 3, 1913, which used an eerie bell in its opening and closing. He did not enjoy the popularity of his works, but his works, which was only a few, had very big impacts on composers in 1950 to 1960. One of his famous works was 5 pieces for orchestra, Opus 10, 1911 to 1913. Igor Stravinsky, 1882 to 1971, represented neoclassicism. first at the Russian Ballet. He was asked to compose the Firebird Ballet, 1910, then the Petrushka Ballet, 1911, with bitonality. His third ballet La Sacre du Printemps, which used many dissonant chords, on the 29th of May 1913 in Paris, got such boos from the audiences that security was brought in to cope it. Despite causing tumult during performances, his ballets were recognized as masterpieces and influenced composers throughout the world. Stravinsky also eventually moved to the United States. As Western Music Center moved to the United States, Bela Bartok, 1881–1945, moved to the States in 1940. His music used Hungarian peasant elements infused with classical form and 20th-century sounds and influenced 20th-century composers. An American composer, Charles Ives, 1874–1954, did experimental music with very dissonant sounds before 1918. George Gershwin, 1898–1937, was also an American. His works in popular songs, musical comedies and jazz-flavored Broadway musical were worldwide famous. Another leading American composer, Aaron Copland, 1900–1990, combined jazz, blues and ragtime. Piano Variations in 1930 was a highly dissonant work. He used polychords, polyrhythm, changing meters and percussive orchestration. Connotations for Orchestra, 1962, was his example of using manipulation of a tone row or series. I play 二胡 or Chinese violin, so I am familiar very much with the development of 二胡 music compared to other musical instruments. Therefore, the presentation on the development of Chinese music in this fourth period will emphasize on the development of 二胡 music. Grand Master 刘天华 February 4, 1895 to June 8, 1932, studied various Western and Chinese musical instruments, as well as Western music composition theory. He analyzed the far behind of Chinese musical instruments playing techniques compared to the ones of similar Western musical instruments. Eventually he published a basic teaching book on playing 二胡 and 琵琶 or Chinese lute. In the 二胡 section, after the description chapter, he provided a basic practice chapter containing 47 songs, and concluded with his 10 compositions, 1918–1932. In the 琵琶 section, after the description chapter, he provided a basic practice chapter containing 15 songs, and concluded with his 3 compositions, 1927–1929. I don't know 琵琶, so I'll only discuss the 二胡 section. He attempted to introduce the violin playing techniques into 二胡 environment, and his efforts succeeded in breaking through the techniques of playing 二胡 to a much more advanced level. And this technical advancement of playing 二胡 also triggered the technical advancement of playing other musical instruments, with still maintaining the respective regional characteristics which were the main differentiator of Chinese music from the rest. Therefore, he was called the father of 二胡. With his big name, there are many commentaries about him and about his compositions. In my opinion, the 47 practice songs adopted basic violin practice songs which emphasized on fingering, bowing, various keys, reading notes, the durations within beats, etc. In his 10 well-known compositions, he tried to provide new patterns and techniques as the realization of his breakthrough in the new technique of playing 二胡. As an instance, he introduced the technique of 轮指 or rolling finger, which I cannot find it anywhere else except in his composition 空山鸟语 or Birds Sing in an Unmanned Jungle, June, 1928. My video number C004 discusses Master 王乙 1919–2002, guiding me on how to perform this song. My videos numbers C001 to C003 are also about the compositions of Grand Master 刘天华. The background songs in my videos numbers A012 A014, and A016 are also his compositions. After Grand Master
刘天华
people were so enthusiastic in practicing Western techniques in playing Chinese musical instruments. A Cantonese music,
鸟头林
or Birds Flying into Jungle, 1931, by
易建全
1896 to 1971, used
高湖
to generate bird chirping sounds at very high pitches. To understand a bit about Cantonese music, please refer to previous video 3.e in this series. As the patriotism wave swept across Asia, while China was under civil war and at the same time was invaded by Japan, many Chinese-tuned patriotism songs were also composed during this era, such as
黄河大合唱
or Yellow River Choir, 1939. The movie entertainment business brought up many Chinese pop songs. Young people were captivated with the love songs using Western band instruments but still with Chinese character tunes. The most famous of
上海滩七大歌后
or the 7 great singing stars of
上海
was the actress and singer
周璇
August 1, 1920 to September 22, 1957. Her songs are still very well known today. A Special,
月圆花好
or Full Moon and Beautiful Flowers, 1940. The improvements of
二胡
playing using violin techniques were unstoppable. Lively,
二胡
light song,
小花鼓
or small flower drum, 1943, by
刘北茂
1903 to 1981, is still very favorable today.
琵琶韵
Or the Rhyme of
琵琶
1944, by
于鹏
1917 to 1946, used,
二胡
especially, to imitate the sounds of
琵琶
I finish this video here. And the next video in this series will continue with the music developments the mid-20th century. Thank you for watching.